Austin has been one of the hottest housing markets for a long time now. But we are on the verge of winning another distinction that nobody is going to get excited about. If growth continues at its current rate, within the year, Austin, Texas is forecasted to become the most unaffordable housing market outside of California. Think about that for a minute. More unaffordable than Seattle, Miami, or New York City. Now, not everybody agrees it's going to happen, but last month in the 5-county Austin metro area, the median sales price hit $500,000. In the city of Austin, that median price was $565,000. For comparison, 2 years ago in December 2019, the median price in the Austin metro was $323,000 and $405,000 in the city of Austin. The good news is this is what a boom looks like. I'm sure you've heard about all the big name employers bringing lots of high-paying jobs that enable their employees to enjoy a higher standard of living. The bad news is if you're navigating this market trying to buy a house, it can get very frustrating, and there is a very good chance you will eventually reach a point where you just give up. The problem with giving up is you're going to miss the shift. And if you don't think there's a shift coming, stick around for this video, and I'll go over some of the things that are happening right now that will have a ripple effect on housing prices as we move further into 2022. If you haven't heard, inflation is at a 40-year high. The cost of gas is nearly double what it was just 2 years ago, and food and other goods and services are getting more expensive every day. When inflation is high, household spending becomes more restricted because the same amount of money coming into a household can't buy what it used to. That means more and more people will be faced with tightening their household budgets, which will impact the number of buyers in the market. The other thing related to inflation are rising interest rates. The Fed says 6 to 7 more increases by the end of the year. Now, Federal Reserve policies aren't directly tied to mortgage rates, but they do impact them. A year ago, you could get a 30-year mortgage at 2.75%, and today it's 4.1%. Look at how this impacts affordability. This is the principal and interest payment on a $500,000 loan. At 2.75%, your payment is $2,041 per month, and at 4.1%, the payment jumps to $2,416. Now, an extra $400 a month might not seem like a lot, but depending upon where your debt to income is at, it could be the difference between approved and not approved. To say it in a different way, higher mortgage rates will lower your buying power. The formula is that if you want to keep your payment the same, for every percentage point the mortgage rate increases, you'll need to lower the loan amount by 10%. For example, if you're approved for a $500,000 loan at 3%, that approval drops to $450,000 at a 4% rate. Now, a 4% mortgage rate is still historically low, but remember, this could be just the beginning of rate increases. And unfortunately, at the same time the interest rates are going up, home prices are going up too, which means that affordability gap will grow wider and wider, and there will be buyers who are going to get priced out. But will this have an impact on home prices? Well, let's talk a little bit about competition. There have been countless examples of homes selling for more than the list price. This happens when multiple people want to buy the same house. You rarely know how many other buyers you're bidding against, but when the listing agent posts highest and best offer due by a certain date and time, everyone who is interested in that house is going to increase their offer. Now, frankly, this is probably one of the major reasons why those median sales price numbers have gone up so much so quickly. The actual sales price is a reflection of market value of the house in the current market. But is it really an accurate reflection of the value of comparable houses in the same area? I can point to several examples where a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house is listed at $380 and gets bid up to $460. But a comparable house in that same neighborhood gets listed for $480 and nobody places an offer on it. And of course, there's also those ones everybody talks about, when the winning bid is substantially higher than the list price. House is listed for $450, winning bid $650. Now, these kinds of offers have transformed the market and make it very difficult to figure out actual market value for the next house in that same neighborhood that gets listed for sale. It's also the primary reason why sellers have come to expect that the buyer signs an appraisal waiver. If a buyer is willing to pay $480, but the house only appraises for $450, then with an appraisal waiver, the buyer would pay that extra $30,000 in addition to their down payment. Now, that difference between sales price and appraised value gets even more blurry when there are a lot of cash purchases. And there have been a lot of those in the Austin Metro in the last 2 years. If someone is paying cash, it doesn't matter what the house appraises for, because the buyer is assuming all the risk if they need to sell the house in the future and can't get what they paid for it. What I'm trying to point out is that if inflation and rising mortgage rates reduce the number of buyers, then there should be less competition for the houses that are available for sale. And if there is less competition, there would be less need to pay significantly more than the list price to win the bidding war. In a scenario like that, houses would begin to sell for closer to list price. And that, by itself, would significantly reduce that median sales price number. But if median sales prices begin to decline, two things would happen next. More buyers would jump back into the market, and more sellers would become reluctant to list their house. I mean, think about it. Nobody wants to sell their house in a declining market. But don't forget this. Someone that just paid $600,000 for a house that was valued at $400,000 2 years ago would never sell it for $500,000 unless they absolutely had to. But if someone bought that house back in 1998 for $150,000, they might become very motivated to sell for $500,000, especially if they thought if they didn't sell, that they were going to miss their opportunity. Now, everything I just went over is theory and projection. It hasn't happened, but it could. Everything you're currently reading about the housing market is based on what happened 2 to 3 months ago. And that's not an attempt to discredit anything that's being reported. It's just the nature of how sales data works. A house that closes today represents an agreement that took place 30 to 60 days ago. And that same house that closes today will show up on this month's reporting, which won't be published and analyzed for another 30 to 60 days. If you're serious about buying a house, I would suggest you start looking at what's going on right now and get ready to take action when the shift begins. It's not a question of if it's coming, it's a question of when it comes and what kind of opportunities will it create. You know, I get emails, texts, and phone calls almost every day from people who are thinking about buying or selling real estate here in the Austin area, and I would love to help you out too. If you like this video, you should check out this other one that I did. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. All of my contact information is in the video description, so don't be shy. Let's make your real estate dreams come true.